I listened to that voicemail 7 times. Not because I didn't hear it, because I didn't believe it. Pack your bags, Grandpa. You don't matter anymore. She didn't whisper it. She didn't hesitate. She said it like she had already decided what was going to happen. Like I was already gone. I sat there in the living room, staring at my phone. Everything felt slower, quieter, like something inside me was trying to catch up to what I had just heard. Then I played it again. And this time, I noticed something else. A sound in the background. A chair moving. A plate. And my son. He didn't say anything. He didn't stop her. He didn't correct her. He was just there. That part stayed with me. Not the words. The silence. Because silence like that is not neutral. It means agreement. I set the phone down and looked around the room. Same couch I bought years ago. Same table I put together myself. Same window where I used to watch him play when he was a kid. Nothing had changed. But suddenly, it all felt different. I stood up and walked into the kitchen. Poured myself a glass of water. Slow. Careful. Like if I moved too fast, something would break. I didn't call her back. I didn't text. Because I already understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a decision. They had already made it. Without me. I went back to the living room. Sat down again. Picked up my phone. Played the message one more time. Then I paused it halfway through. Right before it got worse. Because something else was starting to settle in. Not anger. Not yet. Clarity. They weren't asking me to leave. They believed I had no choice. And that belief told me everything. They thought the house was theirs. They thought the decision was already made. I leaned back and closed my eyes. And for the first time since the message started, I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because it was simple. They had no idea. Underscore. It wasn't always like this. That's the part people never see. They hear the end of the story and think it was always broken. It wasn't. When Daniel first brought Rachel home, she smiled the moment she walked in. She held my hand and called me Dad before dinner was even finished. I remember thinking he made a good choice. She was polite, respectful, careful with her words. After his mother passed, the house felt empty, too quiet. So when they got married, I told them to move in. They didn't have to ask. I offered. I gave them the larger bedroom, the one with the better view. I said I didn't need it anymore. That part wasn't entirely true, but it felt right. A father steps back, makes space, lets the next generation build something of their own. At least, that's what I believed. The first few months were easy. We ate together. We talked. We laughed. It felt like a home again. Then small things started to change. Not obvious things. Nothing you could point at. Just moments. A pause in conversation when I walked in. A look that lasted a second too long. A sentence that felt sharper than it needed to be. Don't you think it's time to have your own place? She said it casually, like it was just a thought. Not a suggestion. Not a push. Just something placed quietly into the air. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't hear it. Because I didn't want to make it real. Because once you acknowledge something like that, it grows. So I stayed quiet. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself she didn't mean it. I told myself families go through phases. But phases don't follow you from room to room. Phases don't sit in the silence between conversations. I started noticing patterns. Conversations would stop when I entered. Or change direction too quickly. Like I wasn't supposed to hear what came before. And Daniel, he changed too. Not all at once. Just enough that you could feel it. He stopped asking me things. Stopped including me in small decisions. Even dinner plans. Things we used to talk about without thinking. Now felt distant. Like I needed permission to be part of them. That's when I started spending more time outside. Long walks. Late evenings. Sitting in my car longer than necessary. Not because I had nowhere to go. Because I didn't feel like going back. And still, I said nothing. Because silence is easy. At least at the beginning. Underscore. The changes didn't come all at once. They came in pieces, small enough to ignore, until they weren't. One night, I came home and noticed the hallway lights were off. I remembered leaving them on. I turned them back on without thinking. The next morning, there was a note on the counter, placed exactly where I would see it. Please turn off the lights after 10 p.m. No name, no explanation, just a rule. Rachel mentioned it while making coffee. She smiled and said they were trying to save electricity. I nodded, said nothing, because that's how it starts. Not with confrontation, with suggestion. A few days later, I went into the kitchen to cook. She stepped in and paused. Then she asked, calmly, if I could let her know before using the kitchen. I looked at her, then at Daniel. He didn't look up. I agreed, because it sounded reasonable, because I didn't want tension, because I still believed this would pass. But after that, I noticed something. I started hesitating. Before opening the fridge, before turning on the television, before sitting down. One evening, I sat in the living room. Same chair I had used for years. Rachel smiled and said, that's kind of my spot. She laughed after saying it. So everyone treated it like a joke. I laughed too. Then I stood up. Not because she told me to. Because I suddenly felt out of place. That was the moment everything shifted. No one forced me to move. I moved on my own. And that made it worse. Because once you start adjusting yourself, you keep going. I stopped using the living room when they were there. I avoided the kitchen at certain hours. I kept my movements quiet, careful, measured, like I was trying not to disturb something that didn't belong to me anymore. The house hadn't changed, but the way I existed inside it had. And slowly, without anyone saying it directly, I stopped feeling like I belonged there. Distance didn't happen all at once. It built slowly, quietly, in the spaces between things that used to exist. We stopped eating together. At first, it happened once or twice. They said they had already eaten, or they would eat later. I didn't question it. People get busy. Schedules change. That's what I told myself. But then it kept happening. Until one day, I realized I had eaten alone every night for 2 weeks. Not once. Not accidentally. Consistently. I would sit at the table, listening to their voices in the other room. Sometimes they laughed. Sometimes they spoke quietly, like they didn't want to be heard. I stopped trying to join them. Not because I didn't want to. Because I already knew the answer. Daniel used to talk to me about everything. Work, plans, small things that didn't matter. Now it was different. Short answers. No follow-up. No eye contact. I tried once. Asked him how things were going. He said same. Then looked at his phone. That was the entire conversation. Rachel filled the silence. But not with me. She spoke to him. Planned with him. Decided things with him. I was there. But not part of it. That was the shift. Not being pushed out. Being left out. I started noticing patterns. Conversations stopped when I entered. Or changed direction too fast. Like I had walked into something I wasn't supposed to hear. I didn't ask. Because asking makes it real. And I wasn't ready for that. So I adjusted. Again. I woke up earlier. Before they did. Just to have a few quiet minutes. Coffee in the same chair. Same view. Same silence. For those few minutes, it still felt like my home. Then I would hear movement. Doors opening. Voices starting. And just like that, the feeling disappeared. I would stand up. Put my cup away. Leave the room. Not because I had to. Because I felt like I should. That was when it became clear. I wasn't losing comfort. I was losing my place. Underscore. Thanksgiving was her idea. Rachel planned everything. The food. The guests. The seating. Her family filled the house. Voices everywhere. Laughter. Movement. Energy. It looked perfect. From the outside. Daniel asked me to join. So I did. I took a seat at the far end of the table. Not where I used to sit. But no one mentioned it. Dinner started normally. Plates passed around. People talking over each other. Stories being shared. Then Rachel stood up. Glass in her hand. Smile ready. To family, she said. Everyone raised their glasses. Then she added something else. And to knowing when it's time to move on. There was a pause. Just a second. Then a few people laughed. Some nodded. Like they understood something. She looked at me. Not long. Just enough. That was the moment. Not the words. The intention. Because everyone at that table knew exactly what she meant. And no one said anything. Daniel didn't react. He kept eating. Didn't look at me. Didn't correct her. Didn't stop it. That part mattered more than anything else. I raised my glass. Took a sip. Stayed quiet. Because reacting would have changed the moment. And I didn't want to change it. I wanted to see it clearly. Because clarity matters. And that was the first time everything became clear. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't overthinking it. This wasn't temporary. This was intentional. And once you see intention, you can't unsee it. Something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not yet. Something more stable. Certainty. And certainty changes how you move. Underscore. Underscore. 3 days later. I came home. Same as always. Keys in hand. Nothing unusual. Until I tried to open the door. The key didn't turn. I tried again. Slower. More careful. Still nothing. That's when I noticed the lock. It had been replaced. New. Clean. Not mine. I stepped back. Looked at the door. Same house. Same address. Same everything. Except access. There was a note. Taped beside the handle. Please respect our space. I read it once. Then again. Not because I didn't understand it. Because I wanted to be sure it was real. I looked around. Neighbors. Street. Everything normal. Except this. I didn't knock. I didn't call. I didn't raise my voice. Because something else had already settled in. Clarity. They believed this was their house. They believed they had the right. Not legally, but mentally. And that was enough for them. That's why they changed the lock. Not because they could. Because they thought they could. That difference mattered. I stood there for a moment longer. Then I smiled. Not because it was funny. Because everything made sense. The rules. The distance. The dinner. The voicemail. This was the plan. And they thought it was finished. They thought the decision had already been made. They thought I had nowhere to go. I turned around, walked back to my car, sat inside, hands on the wheel. And for the first time since that voicemail, I wasn't confused. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't reacting. I understood. They had made a move, and they believed it was final. But they forgot one thing. They never asked what they were standing on. I didn't go back that night. Not because I couldn't. Because I didn't need to. I stayed in the car longer than I planned. Engine off. Street quiet. Lights still on inside the house. Shadows moving behind the windows. Life going on like I had already been erased from it. That was the moment it became clear. They weren't waiting for me to leave. They believed I already had. And once someone believes that, they stop being careful. They stop watching what they say, what they do. That's when mistakes happen. I leaned back in the seat, closed my eyes for a second, then reached into the glove compartment. The folder was still there, exactly where I left it. I hadn't opened it in years. Not because I forgot. Because I trusted. That was my mistake. I took it out slowly, held it in my hands. It felt heavier than I remembered. Not physically. Something else. I opened it. Page by page. Line by line. Everything was still there. Every signature. Every clause. Every detail they never thought to ask about. That's when something shifted. Not outside. Inside. They didn't take anything from me. They stepped into something they didn't understand. And that made them vulnerable. I read the last page again. Just to be sure. Not because I doubted it. Because I wanted to feel it. Certainty. I closed the folder. Looked back at the house one more time. Then I said it. Quiet. Clear. They have no idea. And for the first time since all of this started, I wasn't the one reacting. Underscore. The next morning, I didn't rush. That part mattered. Because reacting fast is what people expect. I didn't want to be expected. I wanted to be precise. I took my time getting ready. Same routine. Same movements. Nothing out of place. But inside, everything had already changed. I drove to the office without thinking. The building looked the same. Glass doors. Quiet lobby. Neutral. Space. Nothing personal. That's what I needed. I took the elevator up. Same floor. Same hallway. Same door. I paused before knocking. Not because I was unsure. Because once I stepped inside, things would move forward. And they wouldn't stop. I knocked. He opened the door almost immediately. Looked at me. Then at the folder in my hand. You still have it, he said. Not a question. A statement. I nodded. Placed the folder on his desk. He didn't open it. Didn't need to. He had been there when it was created. Years ago. Before Rachel. Before any of this. I need to know something, I said. He leaned back. Waited. Is everything still valid? He didn't answer right away. Not because he needed to check. Because he understood what the question meant. Then he looked at me and said, yes. One word. That was all it took. But it wasn't just the answer. It was the certainty behind it. Nothing had changed. Not legally. Not structurally. Not in any way that mattered. The only thing that had changed was what they believed. Once you move forward, he said, There's no going back. I held his gaze, and that's when I realized something else. I wasn't trying to go back. I was done stepping back. I understand, I said. And this time, I meant it. I didn't act immediately. That would have been a mistake. Because timing is everything. 1 day passed. Nothing. 2 days passed. Still nothing. No calls. No messages. No hesitation. That told me everything I needed to know. They were comfortable. Confident. Certain they were right. And that certainty was their weakness. On the 3rd day, I made the call. It lasted less than 5 minutes. No emotion. No explanation. Just facts. Names. Documents. Authority. Everything aligned. Everything ready. The voice on the other end didn't question me. Didn't hesitate. Because they didn't need to. Reality doesn't argue. It executes. I gave them what they needed. Nothing more. Nothing less. When the call ended, I didn't move. I sat there, phone still in my hand, listening to the silence. Not empty. Different. Controlled. For the first time since that voicemail, I knew exactly where this was going. Not a fight. Not a conversation. Something else. Something final. They thought they had already made the last move. They thought the door was closed. They thought I was outside. But what they didn't understand was simple. They were standing on something that didn't belong to them. And now, that truth was already in motion. They just didn't see it yet. It happened 2 days later. Not with noise. Not with confrontation. Just a knock on the door. I wasn't there. But I can see it clearly. Rachel opened the door, expecting something ordinary. A delivery. A neighbor. Instead, she saw someone she didn't recognize. A man in a suit. Calm. Professional. Holding a folder. He asked for their names. Confirmed them. Then handed over the documents. No emotion. No explanation beyond what was necessary. Just procedure. That's how it works. Clean. Direct. Final. Rachel spoke first. Of course she did. Fast. Sharp. Asking questions. Challenging it. Trying to take control of something that wasn't hers to control. The man didn't react. Didn't argue. Didn't engage. Because there was nothing to argue. Everything was already written. Everything already decided. Daniel stepped forward. Took the papers. Read them slowly. Not scanning. Reading. Trying to understand something that didn't match what he believed. Ownership. Authority. Legal standing. Words he had never thought to question. Because he assumed he already knew. He looked up. Not at the man. At Rachel. And for the first time, there was doubt. The man said what he needed to say. Nothing more. Then he left. No raised voices. No scene. Just silence. And that silence said everything. My phone rang that evening. Daniel. I let it ring once. Then again. Then I answered. Dad, what is this? His voice had changed. Not confident. Not distant. Uncertain. There was something else in it. Something I hadn't heard in a long time. He was trying to understand. I didn't interrupt. I let him speak. He explained what happened. Mentioned the papers. The man. The words he didn't expect to see. Then he stopped. Waiting. I said one sentence. I never gave you the house. Silence. Long, heavy. Then he spoke again. What do you mean? Rachel's voice was in the background. Faster now. Louder. Asking questions. Demanding answers. But Daniel wasn't listening to her. He was listening to me. I took a breath. Not because I needed to. Because I wanted to say it clearly. It was always mine. Another silence. This one different. Because now he understood. Not everything. But enough. You never told us, he said. He sounded confused. Not angry. That's right, I said. I didn't. A pause. Then, quieter, he asked, why? That question mattered. More than everything else. Because it was the one thing they never considered. I didn't think I had to, I said. That's not something you explain to family. He didn't respond right away. And in that silence, everything rearranged. The rules. The distance. The dinner. The lock. The voicemail. All of it. Changing meaning. Becoming something else. Something he could no longer ignore. Dad, he said. But he didn't finish. Because some things don't have easy endings. I let the silence stay there. Between us. Not empty. Heavy. Because this wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about understanding. Dad, we didn't know. His voice was quieter now. Not defensive. Not distant. Just unsure. I know, I said. And I meant it. They didn't know. Because they never asked. Because they assumed. Because they believed they didn't have to. I looked out the window. Same street. Same house. Nothing had changed. Except everything. I didn't think I needed to explain it, I said. Not to family. That word stayed there. Family. Because that was the part that mattered. Not the house. Not the lock. Not even the voicemail. The assumption. That I didn't matter. That I could be moved. Replaced. Removed. Without consequence. I gave you space, I said. I gave you trust. I stayed quiet. I paused. Then I finished it. But quiet doesn't mean invisible. No answer. Just breathing. Then finally, can I come see you? That question changed everything. Because it wasn't about the house anymore. It was about us. I didn't answer right away. Because this part mattered. More than anything else. Yes, I said. But not yet. He didn't argue. Because now he understood something he didn't before. You don't come back the same way you left. And respect doesn't come from words. It comes from what you do after you lose it. I ended the call. Sat there for a long time. Thinking. Not about what I won. About what I kept. My dignity. My place. My voice. For years. I stepped back. Adjusted. Stayed quiet. Until there was nowhere left to go. And when they told me to leave, they believed it was already done. That I had nothing left to stand on. But they were wrong. Because the one thing I never gave them was the right to decide who I was in my own home. And now, for the first time in my life, my own son had to ask me if he could come back.